The autumn wind whispered through Oakwood Creek as Marcus Rivera dropped to his knees on the cold grass. Oil stains marked his worn jacket. Calloused hands stretched wide. 3 feet away, 6-year-old Sophia trembled in her wheelchair, her legs motionless for 6 long years. "Trust me, sweetheart," Marcus whispered. She gripped the armrests, pushed herself up. 1 trembling step. 2. 3 miraculous steps into his waiting arms. Across the park, a woman in a faded sweater collapsed against an oak tree, tears streaming down her face. Catherine Montgomery had spent millions on the world's best doctors. All had failed. But this poor mechanic had just given her daughter what seemed impossible. How could a stranger with empty pockets succeed where her fortune couldn't? 2 months earlier, Marcus Rivera wiped grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. The autumn afternoon stretched long and quiet in his small garage behind the house on Maple Street. Tools hung in perfect order on pegboard walls, the only luxury he allowed himself in a life stripped down to essentials. His wife Maria had been gone 3 years now, taken by cancer that consumed their savings as surely as it consumed her body. In the corner, beneath a dusty tarp, sat a small red bicycle with training wheels still attached. Tyler burst through the garage door, his 7-year-old energy filling the space like sunlight, breaking through clouds. "Dad, can we go to the park? I finished my homework, I promise." The boy's eyes sparkled with the kind of hope that made Marcus forget about overdue bills and empty cupboards. His son had inherited Maria's optimism, that beautiful ability to find joy in simple moments. Marcus set down his wrench and ruffled Tyler's sandy hair. "Give me 5 minutes to wash up, buddy." They walked hand in hand down Elm Street, past houses where other families lived behind white picket fences and manicured lawns. Tyler chattered about his day at school, about the math test he aced, and the friend who shared his lunch. Marcus listened with the careful attention of a father who knew these moments were precious beyond measure. The park came into view, its old oak trees dressed in autumn gold, playground equipment worn smooth by countless children's hands. That's when they saw her. A woman in a faded sweater pushed a wheelchair across the grass, moving with the careful precision of someone carrying fragile cargo. The little girl in the chair couldn't have been much older than Tyler, with dark curls framing a face both beautiful and heartbreakingly still. Her legs, thin as winter branches, lay motionless beneath a small blanket. The woman, her mother clearly, stopped near the swings and knelt beside the wheelchair, brushing a strand of hair from the child's forehead with infinite tenderness. Tyler's hand tightened in Marcus's grip. "Dad, why can't that little girl walk?" The question carried no judgment, only the pure curiosity of childhood encountering something beyond its understanding. Marcus watched the woman's shoulders tense at his son's innocent words, saw her protective instincts flare like a mother bird shielding her nest. But Tyler had already broken free, his natural warmth overriding any sense of stranger danger. "Hi, I'm Tyler. What's your name?" The little girl looked up, with eyes that seemed too old for such a young face. "Sophia," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the autumn breeze. Tyler plopped down cross-legged in front of her wheelchair, with the easy acceptance that only children possess. "That's a pretty name. Do you want to be friends?" Something shifted in Sophia's expression, a crack appearing in walls built from years of isolation and different. For the first time since they'd arrived at the park, she smiled. The woman straightened slowly, and Marcus caught his first good look at her face. She was younger than he'd initially thought, maybe early 30s, with the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that spoke of sleepless nights and endless worry. But there was something else in her features, a refinement that seemed at odds with her worn clothing and careful movements. Her hands, he noticed, were soft and uncalloused, not the hands of someone who worked with them for a living. "I'm Kate," she said, extending one of those soft hands toward Marcus. "Kate Miller. We just moved to town." Her voice carried the faintest trace of an accent, something educated and Eastern that she seemed to be working to suppress. Marcus shook her hand, noting the expensive watch she wore beneath a frayed sweater cuff. Everything about this woman whispered contradictions, puzzles wrapped in careful layers of ordinary. Tyler had already begun telling Sophia about the swings, about how the highest one could make you feel like you were flying. "I could push your chair really fast," he offered with the earnest generosity of childhood. "It would be like flying, too." Sophia's smile widened, and for a moment her face transformed from porcelain fragility to something radiant and alive. Kate's breath caught, and Marcus saw tears gather in her eyes before she quickly looked away. "We should let them play," Marcus said gently, settling onto a nearby bench. Kate hesitated for a moment before joining him, maintaining careful distance between them. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children navigate the delicate dance of new friendship. Tyler had taken charge of Sophia's wheelchair, pushing her in wide circles around the playground while she laughed. Actually laughed. For what Marcus suspected might be the first time in months. "He's wonderful with her," Kate said quietly, her voice thick with emotion she was trying to hide. "Most children, they stare, or they're afraid, or their parents pull them away." She wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to hold something together. "Sophia hasn't had a real friend since—" She stopped herself, walls slamming back into place with an almost audible click. Marcus studied her profile, noting the expensive bone structure beneath the careful makeup designed to look like no makeup at all. "Since what?" he asked gently, but Kate had already retreated behind polite distance. She stood abruptly, smoothing down her sweater with hands that trembled slightly. "We should be getting home. It's almost dinner time," Tyler protested with the dramatic flair of a 7-year-old facing injustice. "But Dad, Sophia and I were going to count clouds." He looked between the adults with the kind of wisdom that children sometimes possess in spades. "Can we come back tomorrow? Please?" His question was directed at Marcus, but his eyes were on Kate, sensing somehow that she held the real power in this moment. Kate's resolve wavered as she looked at her daughter's face, bright with happiness for the first time in longer than she cared to remember. "We'll see," she said finally, the kind of non-answer adults give when they're buying time to think. But something in her expression suggested she wanted to say yes, as much as the children wanted to hear it. As they parted ways, Marcus found himself watching Kate push Sophia's wheelchair down the tree-lined street. There was something about the way she moved, careful and controlled, as if she were carrying more than just her daughter's physical weight. Tyler walked backward beside him, waving until the pair disappeared around the corner. "She's sad, Dad," he said with the matter-of-fact observation that children make when adults think they're not paying attention. That night, after Tyler had fallen asleep clutching the worn teddy bear that had been his comfort since Maria's death, Marcus stood in his garage staring at the red bicycle under its dusty tarp. Maria had bought it the month before her diagnosis, convinced they would have a daughter to go with their son. "Every family needs balance," she used to say, her hand resting on her flat belly with the kind of hope that could move mountains. He pulled the tarp away slowly, revealing the pristine bike beneath. The training wheels gleamed silver in the fluorescent light, and the bell on the handlebar still held its cheerful shine. It had been waiting 3 years for a little girl who would never come, a dream that died with Maria in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and broken promises. But tonight, for the first time since he'd covered it up, Marcus could imagine it serving a different purpose. The next afternoon found them back at the park, Tyler practically vibrating with excitement as they approached the familiar bench. Kate and Sophia were already there, positioned in the same careful spot as the day before. But something had shifted in the 24 hours between visits. Sophia's eyes found Tyler immediately, lighting up with genuine joy, while Kate offered Marcus a smile that seemed less guarded than before. "I brought something," Marcus said, pulling a small wooden toy from his pocket. He'd carved it the night before, working by lamplight until his fingers cramped. It was a simple thing, a horse with wheels that could be pulled along on a string. But he'd sanded it smooth as silk and painted it with the last of the red paint from his workbench. For Sophia, the little girl's eyes went wide as she took the toy in her small hands, turning it over with the reverence children reserve for truly special gifts. "It's beautiful," she whispered, and Marcus felt something tight in his chest loosen for the first time in months. Kate's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away, but not before Marcus caught the depth of emotion there. Tyler immediately began showing Sophia how to make the horse gallop across her lap, their heads bent together in the intense concentration of play. Watching them, Marcus was struck by how natural it seemed, how right. Tyler had always been a gentle soul, but with Sophia he displayed a protectiveness that went beyond his years. He adjusted his energy to match hers, somehow understanding instinctively that she needed him to be both friend and guardian. "You didn't have to do that," Kate said quietly, her voice carrying layers of meaning Marcus wasn't sure he understood. Making toys for strange children. But there was gratitude in her tone, and something else, surprise, perhaps, at encountering kindness without expectation of return. "She's not strange," Marcus replied, meaning it. "She's just Sophia." The simplicity of the statement seemed to catch Kate off guard, and for a moment her carefully constructed composure cracked. She looked at him as if he'd said something profound, when to Marcus it was simply the truth. Over the following weeks, their afternoon meetings at the park became routine. Marcus would finish work at the garage, collect Tyler from the neighbor who watched him after school, and they would walk hand in hand to meet Kate and Sophia. Each day brought small discoveries, Sophia's love of stories, Tyler's gift for making her laugh, the way Kate gradually relaxed in Marcus's presence. Marcus began bringing small projects from his workshop. A wooden puzzle box that opened to reveal a tiny bird inside. A set of blocks carved from different woods, each one a different shape that fit together to form a perfect cube. Simple toys that most children would find quaint in an age of electronics, but that Sophia treasured like priceless artifacts. Her room must be full of expensive toys, Marcus thought, but she treated his humble creations as if they were made of gold. Kate, for her part, began to reveal glimpses of the woman beneath the careful facade. She was intelligent, clearly well-educated, with opinions on everything from local politics to classic literature. But she deflected personal questions with the skill of someone who'd had plenty of practice. When Marcus asked about her work, she mentioned consulting in vague terms. When he inquired about Sophia's father, she simply said he wasn't in the picture anymore, with a finality that discouraged further questions. Tyler, unencumbered by adult restraint, asked whatever popped into his head. Why couldn't Sophia walk? Had she tried really hard? Did her legs hurt? Sophia answered his questions with the patience of someone twice her age, explaining about her accident, about muscles that didn't work the way they were supposed to, about doctors and therapy and hope that came and went like seasons. It was Tyler who first suggested the bicycle. They were sitting in Marcus's garage one rainy afternoon, all four of them crowded around his workbench, while he showed Sophia how to sand wood smooth. The red bike gleamed in the corner, no longer hidden, but not yet acknowledged. "Dad," Tyler said with the sudden inspiration that strikes children like lightning, "could we put training wheels on Sophia's wheelchair?" The suggestion hung in the air like a question mark, and Marcus felt Kate tense beside him. But Sophia's face lit up with possibility. Could we really? She asked, looking between the adults with the kind of hope that could break hearts or heal them. Marcus met Kate's eyes across the workbench, seeing his own thoughts reflected there. It was crazy. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of dream that led to disappointment. Maybe, Marcus said carefully. We could figure something out. That night, after Kate and Sophia had gone home and Tyler was asleep, Marcus pulled the red bicycle fully into the light. He studied its construction with the methodical eye of someone who solved problems for a living. The frame was solid, the wheels true. With some modification, some careful engineering, it wasn't impossible. Maria's voice seemed to whisper from the shadows of the garage. Every family needs balance. The project consumed his evenings for the next 2 weeks. He removed the bike's rear wheel and replaced it with a wider axle that could support a small platform. Training wheels became stabilizing wheels, positioned to support but not restrict. He welded brackets from scrap metal and cushioned everything with foam padding salvaged from old car seats. It wasn't pretty, but it was solid, safe, and most importantly, it would work. When he unveiled his creation to the children, their reactions made every late night and sore muscle worth it. Tyler whooped with delight, immediately seeing the possibilities. Sophia stared in wonder, her small hands tracing the modified frame as if it were a magical artifact. Kate said nothing at all, but Marcus saw her hand press to her mouth, as if holding back words too big for speaking. The first test runs were tentative affairs. Marcus held the bike steady while Tyler guided Sophia's hands to the pedals, showing her the motion she needed to make. Her legs, weakened by years of disuse, could barely manage the movement. But there was something in her face. Determination, maybe, or just the sheer joy of trying something new, that made Marcus believe in possibilities he'd forgotten existed. Day by day, she grew stronger. Her legs began to remember what they were meant to do, muscles waking up from their long sleep. Tyler appointed himself chief cheerleader and safety officer, running alongside the modified bike with his arms outstretched, as if he could catch her if she fell. Kate watched from the sidelines, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles showed white, but she never interfered, never suggested they stop or be more careful. It was during one of these practice sessions that Marcus first noticed the black sedan. It appeared at the edge of the park, windows tinted dark, engine running. At first he thought nothing of it. People stopped to watch children play all the time. But the car came back the next day, and the day after that, always positioned where it could observe their little group without being obvious about it. Kate noticed it too. Marcus could tell by the way her shoulders tensed when the sedan appeared, by how her eyes would dart to it and then quickly away. When he asked her about it, she deflected with the smooth practice of someone who'd been deflecting questions her entire life. Probably just someone waiting to pick up their kids, she said, but her voice carried an edge that hadn't been there before. The breakthrough came on a Thursday afternoon in late November. The air held the crisp promise of winter, and the park was nearly empty except for their small group. Sophia had been practicing on the bike for almost an hour, her legs working more smoothly than Marcus had ever seen them. She was focused with the intensity of someone trying to solve the world's most important puzzle, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. "I think I can do it," she said suddenly, her voice carrying a note of wonder. "I think I can really do it." Marcus looked at Tyler, who nodded with the solemn authority of someone who'd been watching carefully. They moved to either side of the bike, hands ready but not touching, creating a corridor of safety for Sophia to navigate. She took a deep breath, positioned her feet on the pedals, and pushed off. The bike wobbled for a terrifying moment, training wheels catching and releasing, finding their balance. Then suddenly she was moving, actually moving under her own power, her legs working in harmony for the first time in her young life. 10 feet, 20, 30 feet of pure, independent motion before the bike slowly came to a stop. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the sound of Kate's sharp intake of breath. Sophia sat on the bike, staring down at her legs as if she couldn't believe they belonged to her. Tyler let out a whoop that probably carried 3 blocks, dancing around the bike in circles of pure joy. But it was Kate's reaction that stopped Marcus cold. She was crying. Not the gentle tears of happiness he might have expected, but deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from someplace dark and hidden. She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking with the force of emotions too long contained. Marcus took a step toward her, instinctively wanting to offer comfort, but she held up one hand to stop him. "I'm sorry." She gasped between sobs. "I'm so sorry, I can't. This isn't—" She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't find words for whatever was breaking apart inside her. Sophia called out from the bike, worried by her mother's distress, but Kate couldn't seem to compose herself enough to respond. That was when the black sedan chose to make its move. Doors opened simultaneously, and 3 men in expensive suits stepped out with the coordinated precision of people who did this professionally. They moved across the park like sharks cutting through water, and Marcus felt every instinct he possessed scream danger. Tyler, still celebrating Sophia's achievement, didn't notice them until they were almost upon their small group. The lead man was tall and silver-haired, carrying himself with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He looked at Kate with an expression that mixed disappointment with something harder to define. "Mrs. Montgomery," he said, his voice carrying the weight of expensive education and old money. "I think it's time to come home." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Montgomery. As in Montgomery Industries, the pharmaceutical giant whose headquarters dominated the skyline 50 miles south in the state capital. As in Harrison Montgomery, whose divorce from his billionaire wife had been front-page news for weeks. As in Catherine Montgomery, who'd walked away from her marriage with a settlement that could fund small countries. Kate, Catherine, looked up at the man with eyes red from crying, and something that looked remarkably like defiance. "I told you, Richard, I'm not ready." But her voice lacked conviction, and Marcus could see her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble around the edges. The man called Richard glanced at Marcus and Tyler with the dismissive look rich people reserved for furniture they didn't particularly like. "This has gone on long enough, Catherine. Sophia needs proper medical care, not whatever this is." His gesture encompassed the modified bicycle, the small group gathered in the public park, the entire scene of ordinary people living ordinary lives. "This is helping her," Catherine said, but her voice was growing smaller with each word. "Look at what she just did. Look at how happy she is." But even as she spoke, Marcus could see her retreating behind walls of wealth and privilege, becoming someone he didn't recognize. Sophia, still sitting on the bike, looked between the adults with the growing awareness that something was going very wrong. "Mama?" she called out, her voice small and confused. "Who are these men? Why are you crying?" But Catherine couldn't seem to find her voice to answer. Tyler, bless his 7-year-old heart, stepped between the suited men and Sophia's bike with the fearless protectiveness of someone defending his best friend. "You're scaring her," he said with the kind of moral clarity that adults spent lifetimes trying to rediscover. "She just learned to ride a bike. You should be happy for her." Richard looked down at Tyler with something that might have been amusement if it hadn't been so cold. "This isn't your concern, young man. This is a family matter." But Tyler didn't budge, his small body a barrier between Sophia and whatever these men represented. Marcus felt the world shifting beneath his feet, like sand in an earthquake. Everything he thought he knew about Kate, about their friendship, about the growing feelings he'd been afraid to name, suddenly seemed built on lies. But looking at Catherine's face, at the genuine anguish there, he realized that whatever she'd lied about, her feelings for Sophia were real. Her tears over her daughter's achievement were real. The woman he'd come to care about was real, even if her name wasn't Kate Miller. "Maybe we should talk about this somewhere private," Marcus said, stepping forward to place himself beside Tyler. He kept his voice calm, reasonable, but his posture made it clear he wasn't going anywhere. "This is upsetting the children." Richard's attention shifted to Marcus for the first time, really seeing him. His gaze took in the work clothes, the calloused hands, the entire package of working-class respectability, and dismissed it as irrelevant. "And you are?" "Marcus Rivera," he replied evenly. "A friend of Kate's, of Catherine's." He corrected himself, the name feeling strange on his tongue. Someone who cares about Sophia's well-being. "Ah." Richard's smile held no warmth whatsoever. "The garage mechanic. Yes, we've been watching you, Mr. Rivera. Very touching how you've inserted yourself into Mrs. Montgomery's life during her time of emotional distress." The implication hung in the air like poison gas, and Marcus felt anger rise in his chest like a living thing. But before he could respond, Catherine found her voice. "Stop it," she said, getting to her feet with some of her old authority returning. "Marcus has been nothing but kind to us. He's helped Sophia more than any of the specialists you insisted I hire. Catherine, please," Richard said, his tone gentling, as if he were speaking to a child having a tantrum. "You're not thinking clearly. The stress of the divorce, Sophia's condition, living in this place. It's affected your judgment. You need to come home where you can get proper help." "This is my home now," Catherine said, but her voice wavered with uncertainty. Marcus could see her internal struggle, the pull between two worlds that had nothing in common except her presence in them. Sophia, still astride the bike that had represented such triumph moments before, began to cry. Not the dramatic tears of childhood disappointment, but the quiet, hopeless crying of someone who'd learned that good things don't last. Tyler immediately went to her side, taking her hand in his with the instinctive comfort of true friendship. "Look at her," Marcus said quietly, his words addressed to Richard but his eyes on Catherine. "Look at how happy she was 5 minutes ago. Look at what she accomplished today. Is that worth nothing because it happened in a public park instead of a private clinic?" Richard's expression didn't change, but Catherine's did. She looked at her daughter as if seeing her clearly for the first time in months. Sophia sat crying on a modified bicycle that had cost maybe $50 in materials, but had given her something no amount of money could buy: the feeling of moving through the world under her own power. "She rode a bike today," Catherine said wonderingly, as if the magnitude of it was just sinking in. "She actually rode a bike." She looked at Marcus with eyes that held a mixture of gratitude and something that looked like love. "How did you know? How did you know what she needed when all those expensive doctors couldn't figure it out?" Marcus thought about Maria, about the red bicycle gathering dust in his garage, about the strange way life sometimes offered second chances when you least expected them. "I didn't know," he said honestly. "I just wanted to help." The simplicity of the statement seemed to galvanize Catherine. She straightened her shoulders and looked at Richard with something Marcus hadn't seen from her before, steel beneath the softness. "We're staying," she said firmly. "Sophia is happy here. She's making progress here. She has a friend here." Her eyes found Marcus. "We both do." Richard's composed facade cracked slightly, revealing something harder underneath. "Catherine, you're making a serious mistake. Harrison is prepared to file for full custody if you continue this episode. Living in poverty, associating with unsuitable people, denying Sophia proper medical care. No judge would allow it to continue." The threat landed like a physical blow, and Marcus saw Catherine flinch. The mention of Sophia's father, her ex-husband, brought a new dimension of fear to her face. "He wouldn't," she whispered, but her voice held no conviction. "He would," Richard confirmed coldly. "And he'd win. You know he would." He gestured to Marcus and Tyler, to the modest park and the small-town setting. "What judge would choose this over everything Harrison can provide?" Marcus felt the weight of his own limitations settling on his shoulders like lead. He was a garage mechanic in a small town, barely making ends meet, raising his son in a 2-bedroom house behind his business. What could he offer against the resources of the Montgomery family? What judge would choose love over luxury, especially when that love came from someone who couldn't even provide basic security? But Tyler, who'd been listening to the adult conversation with the focused attention children brought to matters that affected their world, stepped forward with the moral clarity that sometimes emerged from the most unexpected places. "Sophia doesn't want to go," he said simply. "She likes it here. She learned to ride a bike here. Why would you make her leave when she's happy?" Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought. But he knew Tyler's innocent logic couldn't compete with the realities of money and power and legal systems designed to protect the interests of people like Harrison Montgomery. Catherine knelt beside Sophia's bike, taking her daughter's tear-stained face in her hands. "What do you want, sweetheart?" she asked gently. "Do you want to go back to the big house with all your toys and the nurses and the doctors?" Sophia looked at her mother with eyes that held far too much understanding for a 6-year-old. "Will Tyler come with us?" she asked. When Catherine couldn't answer, Sophia's face crumpled. "Then I want to stay here. Tyler is my best friend. Uncle Marcus made me a bike. I don't want to leave them." The word uncle hit Marcus like a physical blow, carrying with it the full weight of the relationship they'd built over these past weeks. Not just friendship, but something deeper. The beginning of the kind of family bond that transcended blood and circumstance. Tyler beamed at hearing himself included in Sophia's list of essential people, and Marcus felt his heart break and mend simultaneously. Richard checked his expensive watch with the impatience of someone accustomed to having his time respected. "Catherine, I need an answer. The jet is waiting at the regional airport. We can have Sophia back in proper care by evening, and you can begin putting this unfortunate episode behind you." "Give me a minute," Catherine said, standing up from beside the bike. "Please, just give me a minute to think." But Marcus could see in her face that she'd already made her decision, and it wasn't the one his heart desperately wanted her to make. She walked a few steps away, pulling her phone from her pocket with hands that shook slightly. Marcus couldn't hear her conversation, but he could see her shoulders slump as she listened to whoever was on the other end. When she returned, her face had taken on the blank composure of someone who'd learned to hide their feelings behind walls of necessity. "We'll go," she said quietly, not meeting Marcus's eyes. "Sophia and I will go back." The words came out flat and lifeless, as if she were reading from a script she didn't believe in. "No!" Tyler's protest rang across the park, startling a flock of sparrows into flight. "Sophia doesn't want to go. She's happy here. Why are you making her leave?" His 7-year-old sense of justice couldn't comprehend the adult complexities that made leaving the only option Catherine thought she had. Sophia began crying harder, the quiet despair of someone who'd learned that her wants and needs mattered less than forces beyond her control. "I don't want to go, Mama," she sobbed. "Please don't make me go. I like it here. I want to stay with Tyler and Uncle Marcus." Marcus felt something breaking inside his chest, but he knew he had to be the adult in this situation. "It's okay, Sophia," he said gently, kneeling beside her bike. "Your mama has to do what she thinks is best for you. But Tyler and I will never forget you. and we'll never forget that you learned to ride a bike right here in this park." "Will you keep my bike?" Sophia asked through her tears. "Will you keep it so I can ride it if I ever come back?" The question was so full of hope and heartbreak that Marcus had to clear his throat before he could answer. "I'll keep it forever," he promised, and meant it. "It'll be waiting for you whenever you want to ride it again." Catherine finally looked at him then, and Marcus saw his own pain reflected in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words barely audible. "I'm so sorry, Marcus, for everything. For lying to you, for letting you care about us, for—" She couldn't finish, couldn't find words for the magnitude of what they were both losing. "Don't apologize for that," Marcus said firmly. "Don't ever apologize for letting someone care about you and Sophia. That's not something to be sorry for." Richard stepped forward, clearly eager to end this emotional scene and get back to the business of managing Catherine's life. "The car is waiting," he said with the kind of gentle firmness reserved for handling valuable but difficult assets. "We should go before traffic gets heavy." The next few minutes passed in a blur of painful goodbyes and promises to keep in touch that everyone knew were empty. Tyler hugged Sophia fiercely, whispering something in her ear that made her nod solemnly. Catherine shook Marcus's hand formally, as if they were business associates concluding a transaction, but her fingers lingered in his for just a moment longer than propriety required. As the black sedan pulled away with its precious cargo, Marcus and Tyler stood alone in the park that had become the center of their expanded world. The modified bicycle sat abandoned on the grass, its red paint gleaming in the afternoon sun like a promise that would never be fulfilled. Tyler picked up the wooden horse Marcus had carved, the toy Sophia had treasured, but somehow forgotten in the chaos of departure. "She'll come back, won't she, Dad?" Tyler asked, his voice small and uncertain. "Someday she'll come back and ride her bike again." Marcus wanted to say yes, wanted to offer his son the comfort of certainty in an uncertain world. But he'd learned from Maria's death that sometimes the kindest thing was honesty, even when it hurt. "I don't know, buddy," he said, putting his arm around Tyler's shoulders. "I hope so. But sometimes people have to do things they don't want to do, even when it makes everyone sad." They walked home in silence, Tyler carrying the wooden horse, and Marcus pushing the red bicycle that had become something more than just a modified toy. It was proof that miracles could happen in small-town parks, that love could bridge any gap, and that sometimes the most profound gifts came from the most unexpected places. That evening, after Tyler had cried himself to sleep, clutching the wooden horse, Marcus sat in his garage, staring at the bicycle. He thought about Catherine's tears when Sophia had ridden for the first time, about the way she'd looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, about the life they might have built together if the world worked differently. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for giving us the most beautiful 2 months of our lives. We will never forget you and Tyler. C." Marcus typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally sending back, "Sophia's bike will be waiting whenever she wants to ride it again." The response came immediately. "I'm counting on that." 3 weeks passed without word from Catherine and Sophia. Marcus tried to return to his old routine, work, Tyler, the occasional evening at the park. But everything felt hollow now, like a song missing its melody. Tyler asked about Sophia daily at first, then weekly, then settled into the resigned acceptance that children develop when they realize the adults can't fix everything. The garage felt smaller somehow, as if the absence of their weekly visitors had changed its very dimensions. Marcus found himself working later into the evenings, partly to avoid the silence, and partly because staying busy kept his mind from wandering to what-ifs and might-have-beens. It was on a Thursday evening, exactly 3 weeks after Catherine and Sophia had left, that Marcus heard the sound that changed everything. a car door slamming in his driveway, followed by Tyler's voice raised in excitement. "Dad! Dad, come quick! Sophia's here!" Marcus dropped his wrench and ran from the garage, not quite believing what he hoped to see. But there she was, Sophia, sitting in her regular wheelchair beside a taxi that was already pulling away. She looked thinner than when she'd left, paler, but her face lit up with joy when she saw him. "Uncle Marcus!" she called out, holding her arms up for a hug. "I came back. I told Mama I wanted to come back, and she said okay." Marcus scooped her up, wheelchair and all, spinning them both around in the driveway while Tyler danced circles around them. "Where's your mama?" he asked, looking around for Catherine. Sophia's face clouded slightly. She had to stay in the city for business meetings. But she said I could visit for a whole week if you didn't mind watching me. She said to tell you she's working on a surprise, but it might take a while. Marcus felt his heart leap and sink simultaneously. Sophia was here, which was wonderful, but Catherine's absence felt like a wound that wouldn't heal. Still, a week with Sophia was more than he'd dared hope for, and Tyler's joy was infectious enough to lift even the darkest mood. "Of course you can stay," Marcus said, carrying her toward the house. "Tyler, go get the air mattress from the closet. Sophia can sleep in your room." But Tyler was already racing ahead, probably planning every minute of the week they'd have together. The days that followed were among the happiest Marcus could remember since Maria's death. Sophia had indeed grown stronger during her time away. Whether from the expensive medical care or simply from the hope of returning, he couldn't say. She could transfer herself from wheelchair to bed, could sit up straighter for longer periods, and most importantly, she could ride the modified bicycle for increasingly longer distances. Each afternoon they returned to the park, Sophia riding while Tyler ran alongside, and Marcus spotted from behind. She was getting better, stronger, more confident with each session. By the fourth day she was riding almost independently, needing only minimal support to maintain her balance. It was on the fifth day that Marcus's phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Catherine's voice on the other end sounded tired but determined. "Marcus, it's me. How is she?" "She's wonderful," Marcus said, watching through the window as Tyler pushed Sophia on the swing set he'd installed in the backyard. "Happy, healthy, riding her bike every day. She misses you, though. We all do." There was a long pause before Catherine spoke again. "I miss you too. More than I can say. Marcus, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting, okay?" Marcus settled into his kitchen chair, phone pressed to his ear. "I'm listening." "I've been meeting with lawyers for 3 weeks." Catherine began. "Good lawyers, the kind who don't care how much money Harrison has or how many judges he knows. I've been setting up trusts, reorganizing my finances, making it legally impossible for anyone to claim I'm an unfit mother because of where I choose to live or who I choose to love." Marcus's heart stopped at the word love, but he kept his promise not to interrupt. "It's complicated, and it's taken longer than I wanted. But I think I've found a way to make it work. A way for Sophia and me to have the life we want without losing the security she needs." Catherine's voice grew stronger with each word. "I'm not Catherine Montgomery anymore, Marcus. Legally, officially, I'm Kate Miller now. I have a new social security number, a new identity, enough money transferred to offshore accounts to keep Sophia comfortable, but not enough to make us targets." Marcus felt dizzy with the implications of what she was saying. "Catherine, Kate, what are you telling me?" "I'm telling you that if you'll have us, really have us, permanently as a family, then we can make this work. Sophia can grow up in Oakwood Creek with Tyler as her brother, and you as—" She paused, gathering courage. "And you as whatever you want to be to us." The silence stretched between them, filled with possibilities that Marcus was afraid to name. "What about Harrison?" What about the custody threats? Catherine Montgomery's ex-husband can't fight for custody of Kate Miller's daughter, she said with satisfaction in her voice, especially when Kate Miller is married to a respectable small-town mechanic who's proven he can provide a stable, loving home for children. Marcus nearly dropped the phone. Married? Only if you want to, Catherine said quickly. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know I'm asking you to take on more than any reasonable person should. But Marcus, I love you. I love the way you see the world, the way you see Sophia, the way you've made both of us believe in possibilities we thought were gone forever. Marcus looked out the window again, watching Tyler and Sophia play together with the easy joy of siblings who'd never known a world without each other. He thought about the red bicycle in his garage, about wooden toys carved by lamplight, about the way Catherine's eyes had filled with tears when Sophia had ridden for the first time. Yes, he said simply. Yes, what? Catherine asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yes to all of it. Yes to marriage. Yes to family. Yes to whatever it takes to keep us all together. When do you want to do this? Catherine's laugh was like music, bright and clear and full of relief. How about now? I'm actually calling from the courthouse. I was hoping you'd say yes, but I was prepared to spend a very long time convincing you if necessary. Marcus looked at his watch. 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. Now, as in right now? I have a judge waiting, a marriage license in my hand, and a ring in my pocket that I hope fits. Tyler can be your best man, and Sophia can be my maid of honor. We can celebrate with pizza and ice cream and be a real family by dinner time. Marcus didn't hesitate. Tyler, Sophia, get in the truck. We're going on an adventure. An hour later, Marcus Rivera married Kate Miller in a courthouse ceremony that lasted exactly 7 minutes and changed 4 lives forever. Tyler and Sophia stood as witnesses, both of them grinning from ear to ear as if they'd planned the whole thing themselves. The judge, a kindly woman in her 60s, seemed delighted to officiate a wedding that radiated so much genuine happiness. The ring Catherine had chosen was simple, a gold band that fit Marcus's finger as if it had been made for him. When she slipped it on, her hand steady for the first time since he'd known her, Marcus felt the last piece of his world click into place. You may kiss the bride, the judge said with a smile, and Marcus did, sealing promises that went far deeper than any legal document could contain. 6 months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Marcus stood in the same park where everything had begun. But this time he wasn't alone. Kate, he still sometimes thought of her as Catherine, but she was Kate now in every way that mattered, sat on their favorite bench reading while Tyler and Sophia played nearby. The red bicycle leaned against the oak tree, no longer modified with training wheels. Sophia had graduated to a regular bike the month before, her legs finally strong enough to support her completely. The progress had been gradual but steady, each small victory building on the last until she could ride as well as any child her age. A young mother approached their group hesitantly, pushing a wheelchair with a little boy who couldn't have been more than 4. Marcus recognized the look in her eyes, the desperate hope mixed with the fear of disappointment that came with loving a child who faced challenges most people couldn't imagine. Tyler noticed them first, his natural empathy drawing him to the little boy like a magnet. Hi, he said with the easy confidence of a child who'd learned that kindness was the best introduction. I'm Tyler. What's your name? And just like that, the cycle began again. Marcus watched his son, because Tyler was his son now in every way that mattered, work his particular magic on another lonely child. Kate looked up from her book, catching Marcus's eye with a smile that said she was thinking the same thing he was. Some stories, Marcus thought, didn't really end. They just found new beginnings, new people to touch, new miracles to make possible. The red bicycle might gather dust again someday, but right now it stood ready for whatever child needed to believe in the impossible. As the sun set over Oakwood Creek, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Marcus Rivera counted his blessings and found them more numerous than the stars beginning to appear overhead. Sometimes, he reflected, the most beautiful love stories began with the simplest question: "Do you need help?" And sometimes, if you were very lucky, the answer changed everything.